Captain Jahil has a shipment of Taman Sashir waiting to be delivered to Largo 5. Major Kira asks for the star charts for the Argosian sector, but the Glycine sector comes up instead, and Commander Sisko has a problem with his Ractagino. Chief O'Brien to the rescue. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with CIRROC LOFTON.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk. I should not give myself tongue twisters at the beginning there, but I couldn't help it.
Yeah, I'm surprised you made that. You did that.
Not really. We're doing a review of Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Episode 4, Babel. Story, or Babel, it's both. Story by Sally Caves and Ira Stephen Bear. Teleplay by Michael McGreevy and Naren Shanker. Directed by Paul Lynch. This was January 24th, 1993. Where were you? CIRROC LOFTON, how are you today?
Doing well. Doing well.
Yeah, I think
actually spelling, putting thou in jacket.
Excellent. Jake Sisko, everybody. Actually, let's start there. I had forgotten that you also got the virus and you were talking funny. And what I thought must have been super difficult is to deliver nonsense lines as if you're trying to convey something, as if those words mean something to you. It's like your own version of technobabble, right? And I was wondering, do you remember doing that at all? Because it seems like it might be something that might stick out.
I was looking at it, trying to think if I remembered. And I was also thinking as I was watching it, were we given the actual babbling words to say, or were we allowed to make it up? It's like, because I can only imagine like the script supervisor saying, no. It's, you're like, dude, it's babbling.
It's frying pan, not saucepan, dummy.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, come on, really? We're going to stick to that on this? So I did wonder, and I almost went to look for the script, but I just knew it was going to be forever to find the script itself to see if the dialogue matched the script, if O'Brien's words, my words, if that's what was in the script. But I'm going to say yes because they pretty much think out everything on Star Trek.
I would have guessed.
I'm going to say yes because plus the other actors would need a cue to know when their line would come on, right? So there has to be some lines there.
Yeah, the other thing I was thinking too is that you don't want to rely on the actors' improv. That's one less thing that you want to worry about. You don't want to just say, just make something up, because that's going to make life harder for the actor too, in a strange way, because then you're trying to come up with random words rather than acting like those words mean something to you. I feel like it would hurt the performance.
Absolutely. And so that kind of drew me to the conclusion that this was all scripted. All of these lines were scripted, that we just memorized the lines, which makes it actually more difficult to memorize random words out of order and then to say them as if they're a sentence that you're trying to say coherently, right? So for you, it makes sense. The person who's receiving it, it doesn't make sense. So that was one of the curiosities I had just watching the episode, was how it was written. Then the complexity of the language I thought was really on a high level in this episode. It's story by Sally Caves and Ira Bear, but I really felt like the teleplay, the Michael McGreevy and Naren Shankar did a fantastic job of the language. And by that, I mean the science, the medical language in this was kind of deep. We're talking about viruses and vaccines and peptide structures and this and that, and all this really heavy science, medical science stuff. And also the technological science behind it.
Yeah, I was thinking we
So I
could
thought,
get some help from Dr. Muhammad Noor on some of that stuff. I was actually thinking
right.
like we need a doctor in the house. Oh, maybe our good buddy Dr. Anne Marie Seagal, who is a medical doctor, will be in the free for all and can help us out a bit with that.
Yeah, so I was blown away with that. I thought it was a lot of technobabble in this one, medical technobabble.
Hmm.
They could have called it technobabble. That would have been a really great episode title, since it's
You're right. That is so cool. It should be called Technobabble.
yeah, right. I
Love
mean, it
it.
would be literally the first time that they would have acknowledged this terminology where techno is involved. Um, but I was the first thing. There's just, I thought the same thing you thought, which is being able to convey a sentence out of order in that kind of way, but still deliver it in the way where you're believing that you're saying something coherent. I thought that was pretty great. O'Brien does a great job of it. Actually, I thought he was the best.
Yeah, was this the first O'Brien Must Suffer episode? I feel like we already had one in episode 2 or 3. So this kind of was already the second O'Brien Must Suffer episode out of 4. They just started the show and they're like, there's something about that
Yeah.
guy. I really want to put him through torture. Let's just screw with O'Brien for an entire series. That punk.
Yeah, it did feel like if you feel right at home though, right away from the beginning when they're like, "Hey, you got to do this, you got to do that," and I'm thinking, for a station that big, there should be more than one guy who can fix the replicators. It's just
With there are 5,000 people on that station.
right.
So, come on.
Somebody else got to be able to do
Yeah.
this. He can't be the only guy doing everything.
O'Brien's like, "Can you call O'Malley?" Geez, I'm doing all this other stuff. What about
And you know what?
O'Houlihan?
And another reference I caught, which I thought was interesting, was the the lines they had about Rom, because at this point Rom is not known as an engineer who can fix things, right?
Yep.
And I thought that was interesting that later on, because I know Rom now as the guy who can get in there and look under the hood and fix things, almost a Ferengi O'Brien type of thing. And so when they talked about him in this way in this episode, I thought, wow, they hadn't established yet that they wanted to make Rom into the kind of engineering savant that he is.
Yeah, I wonder if they kind of had an idea though, like, or if it was just a coincidence, if it was just an accident, because the fact that Quark said, "Oh, Rom was going to fix him," I was like, I did the same thing you did. I was like, wait a minute, hang on a second. Like just the fact that it was mentioned there, where it makes your ears perk up. Like, were they
Yeah.
already talking about Rom fixing things? But then Odo says, "That's impossible. Rom's an idiot." And I was like, Odo, you know better than that. First of all, that's rude. Secondly, he can fix stuff, theoretically.
Yeah. Well, he
Maybe he
eventually
couldn't at
becomes a
that point.
guy,
Yeah.
maybe at that point, but it's just interesting to me how that's the exact opposite of how we eventually get to know Rom, right? We know Rom now as the guy who can fix things, who
Mm-hmm.
can break into things, who, he has the technological know-how. And initially when Quark said that the replimat was broken in the original Quark Odo scene, which I really enjoyed, because that was where Odo says, Quark says, "Without me around, you'd be forced to find some other poor innocent to persecute." So he framed himself as this poor innocent guy that is
Poor
being
victim.
persecuted. Yeah, uh,
Always the victim, this Quark guy.
always the victim. But I thought the dialogue was great in that scene. Of course, the one customer was telling Quark how to eat it, because you made it, you eat it, And Odo had Quark's back. So that was one thing I noticed. Like, oh, okay, Odo, right off the bat, even though he gives Quark a whole lot of crap, he actually has his back in the moments that count, right? And particularly in this moment when he felt like well, Quark was being bullied. He didn't like that. So he stood and got his back. But in that scene, when Quark was complaining about the replicant, I was thinking to myself, is it Rom? Can't Rom fix that? That's right up Rom's wheelhouse. Until later on, they made the reference about Rom. But initially, my first thought is Rom can fix that.
That's cool.
He
I didn't
knows
think
that.
that. I didn't think about that, but you're right. Yeah, that's now we've been kind of programmed to know there's a connection there. And then, of course, that was Rom's non-appearance mention. That may have been his first non-appearance mention of the series. There was also one for Keiko O'Brien, and there was also one for our good buddy Nog. Those were the good non-appearance mentions that I captured there. But when they mentioned Rom, I was kind of half hoping that we would see him. I was like, oh, good. Are we going to see Rom? Are we going to see Nog? Are we going to see? I did expect to see Keiko, because when the show opened up talking about Keiko, I thought that later on it was going to be like they go back to the O'Briens quarters and we're going to see him talk. But it went into a totally different direction. But yeah, at first it sounded like it was going to be in the direction of the school and Keiko and whatever. Then that was cute. I liked just those little bits, those little slices of life that they have at the beginning of every episode. Those are always kind of my favorite things to focus on, because those give you your own little story. The episode is about XYZ, but at the beginning of that episode, they tell you a little story like, this is happening at the school, or the Arboretum is doing this, or we need more people at waste extraction, or whatever. It's kind of like a non-appearance mention for a story in a way. But those are cool. I love those slice of life things. And those are things that are missing in a lot of other shows. I think Deep Space Nine does that the most and does that the best, where they just give you, the mundane, everyday life, cool stuff that for me is really interesting. And it's good for trivia too.
Yeah. They started off with that kind of everyday thing. This kind of started off with a day in the life of O'Brien, stressed out, those people stuck in the airlock, which, by the way, who wants to be stuck in an airlock, right?
That sounds terrible.
That's worse than an elevator. It's literally airlocked.
With other people's soilage. I wouldn't want to be stuck in a thing with someone.
But then the other guy comes up to him and says, hey, I've been here for a couple of days. I need you to fix my ship and this and that. So like you said about the kind of the mundane everyday, what a day in the life on a space station would be like, that's what it looks like. Brian's got somebody yelling in his ear about, something that he has to do. He's running over here. Captain's mad at him because his coffee's is too hot, and so it did have that kind of day in the life feel to it. It starts off really familiar in that kind of way. Usually, and what I'm noticing on the other Star Trek shows is it enters into this drama right away, and it's the drama. And in this particular case, it didn't really enter into drama. It was just like a chaos day, but there's no like dun dun dun. Now the aliens are here, and then roll credits, right? This ends up just kind of it rolls into the story. It's like we don't know what it's about right off the top when you watch the teaser in the beginning. You really don't know what it's about to be about. Replicators need to be fixed. I love how O'Brien says, I should have transferred to a cargo zone. No people, no complaints. And I just thought that was a cool, that's how a Starfleet officer bitches and moans. That's proper bitching and moaning. I like
we're going to take a quick break, everybody. I do want to mention that alien Strock that you're referencing, Captain White, Captain Jahil White.
Yeah.
That was him. He's great at golfing, actually. That's the twist of it all, not basketball. So, and when we come back, something really interesting. We had a celebrity guest starring in I mean, I guess they're all kind of celebrities, but a pretty interesting celebrity in the guest cast today to talk about. So that'll be really exciting. We'll be right back on the seventh rule.